Hello and welcome. Given the socio-cultural pressures individuals and corporates face in managing the economies, Lillian Muller Gilbert established the philosophical basis for work-life balance. The concept came into use in the 1970s and the 80s. As stressed baby boomers strove to achieve a balance between their career, family, and other areas of their lives. In what is now evolving into work-life integration. Well, joining me today in our interview segment to provide a deeper insights on how this subject should be more than a passing interest is Dr. Adegboyega Ogunwale, a chief consultant psychiatrist at the Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Abeokuta, Ogun State. More will be unveiled on our guests very shortly. Also, in this episode, we will be letting you into a window of our diary in a few things that will be happening to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria from November 29 up to about December the 3rd. Few other tidbits. I'd like you to kindly pay some attention to the video we are going to show you that will intimate you of the possibilities of you joining to bring in your advice that we are going to take to all parts of the globe. Please stay connected and we shall soon be back. You are welcome back. And I am welcoming my guests, Dr. Adegboyega Ogunwale, the Chief Consultant Psychiatrist at the Arrow Medical Center in Abeokuta. Dr. Ogunwale, I bid you welcome to ICAN on Air. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for having me. It's my pleasure to be on air.
Merci. Thank you so much. You know, Dr. Ogunwale, professionals, and this has no coloration whatsoever. Back in the day when we were growing up, you had somebody going to a mental hospital. People raise their hands up and say, "Hey, Tebitibami," that means I have been done on with. And having you as my guest in here, I'm sure you must have had a lot of this kind of sentiments, even amongst professionals. How has your reaction been? Even for those who are in the medical field, how has your reaction to this kind of sentiments been over the years?
Well, Mr. Moderator, I think that's an understandable sentiment, because to a large extent, what you find happening is that mental health is stigmatized all over the world. And a lot's been done to ensure that we destigmatize. But having done all that we have done, stigma still remains. So I guess it's just a bit of stigma that makes people feel that if you were to come to the neuropsychiatric hospital at Abeokuta, you had very serious mental health issues, and it was quite unfortunate. But the truth is, there are a number of reasons why people can develop psychological problems. And to find a place where they can get help is good news to them.
Oh, super point.
To that extent, I think we've been able to regard what we do as helping mankind. Yes.
Thank you very much. And it's not really helped. I mean, if you want to really pin down on it, with the economic challenges that we've dealt, not just us in Nigeria, all over the world, and the essence of work pressures and how to maintain that kind of balance. I'd like to quickly just throw you under a question. In 2019, the World Health Organization, of course, officially identified workplace burnout as an occupational phenomenon, therefore it's cause for concern. What is workout burnout?
Thank you very much. Workplace burnout, or the phenomenon of burnout, is a syndrome that is a collection of symptoms that is born out of workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. And it comprises three key features. The first one is that the individual experiences feelings of exhaustion and energy depletion. So you just feel like you have no energy to go on. The second feature is
I think we are having few glitches there. Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I know it's raining cats and dogs in Abeokuta where you are located, just like we have a lot of rains here in Lagos. Yeah,
feels very negative about
Yeah, and I can see that the glitches are becoming a little bit more pronounced. Dr. Ogunwale, can you still hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. All right. Dr. Ogunwale, you are back. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? I lost you for a bit there.
All right, I'm here. Please continue. You are talking about defining workout and letting us into what gave rise to workout pressures today, and what are the significant symptoms?
Yes. So as I said, the burnout syndrome is a syndrome that arises from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. Now, it comprises three key things. The individual has feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion. Then there is a continued detachment from his work, a mental detachment from his work, with attendant feelings of negativism and cynicism. You know, you feel very cynical about things. And finally, there's reduced professional efficacy. So those are the core features of burnout syndrome in the workplace. And now the World Health Organization sees it as an occupational condition, as an occupational problem, not really a mental disorder.
Oh, super, fantastic. So as it is with individuals, of course, with organizations, and eventually the global economy performance is somehow affected. Now, how do you think the board and management should address this challenge?
Well, I think it's a number of things that the board and management should do. So, I mean, speaking as someone who's got an idea of the differential duties between board and management. So I think board has a duty to provide the right policies, and then management will implement day to day. So board and management must work together, having the same objectives. So what are these objectives? First is to ensure that you have policy regarding the workplace. So is the workplace a toxic environment or a friendly environment? So you've got to develop friendly workplace environments. Okay, you've got to structure the workplace in such a way that people can have relief from high pressure zones. You must set realistic objectives. I mean, some of the high pressure occupations in our country today, in Nigeria in particular, are workspaces where the pressure is not managed because of unrealistic objectives. We knew where these workplaces started and when objectives were realistic. In some of them, the objectives are just not realistic, and people just get burnt out and can burn or shine no longer. Then, of course, you must have policies that help the employees to ensure life and work balance or work-life balance. So what arrangements have you made for holidays? What arrangements have you made for children-friendly work environments? And these are policy issues that the board must look into, and then the management must implement from day to day. And then we look at the, yes, go ahead.
Go ahead. Bury that point you wanted to raise.
Then, yes, we then have the more micro level issues in which we look at things like the quality of the employment and the adequacy of pay. So we see environments now, business environments, in which workers are underemployed chronically. There is no way they will not get burnt out because they are working so hard for so little. So in the end, it's not that they are vulnerable in themselves, but the environmental stimuli make them vulnerable. If you were to tweak the environments differently, then they will get out of the burnout and perhaps do better. So these are some of the things I think board and management must do. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ogunwale. I see your point about motivation and the point about not having smart goals out there. But what is the place of ergonomics in workplace burnout? Ergonomics, specifically.
Well, Mr. Moderator, I think you are pressing on a very sensitive matter because, in my view, economics is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's going to help you to deal with burnout. On the other hand, it's going to create burnout. Now, one of the factors that people have identified as being one of those things driving burnout syndrome is job insecurity. Job insecurity. Now, with ergonomics, certain jobs will be taken over by machines. And so job insecurity kicks in. In fact, I gather that during the COVID-19 pandemic, some people found out that their jobs were simply taken over by the ergonomics of the workplace. So things they were doing before by coming to an office, cleaning the office, things like that, they didn't need to do that anymore because people started working remotely and ergonomics made that possible. So I think we should look at ergonomics in striking the right balance. Indeed, we now know that in all the industrial revolutions that the world has seen, the fourth industrial revolution is the one in which the least number of jobs has been created by industrialization. And we're still going to take away more jobs because we are moving away from even mere ergonomics to robotics. Machine learning algorithms will then take over jobs entirely. So, and at that point, people who have job insecurity will become burnt out with all their attempts to find employment. And those who are in good employment, whose jobs have not been taken over by ergonomics, will feel relieved by ergonomics. So there is the downstream effect and there is the upstream effect. So those who are downstream are perhaps going to feel it more. Those who are upstream and defining what jobs are being created and all that are likely to feel much better. But those who are downstream are likely to feel the effect more, and it could lead to more burnout. Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Ogunwale, I think you've stretched it into the techniques of the ergonomics. I mean, as a layman in that area, thinking of ergonomics in terms of the health, stretching, the type of chairs you use, the type of steering at the laptop for so long without some kind of shading, which really in the workplace is expected as part of the SHE, or what you call safety, health, and the environment, gathering your contract of employment. I was much more thinking about that, but let's look at culture now. What is the place of organizations' culture in work-life balance?
I mean, thank you. Just before I come to culture, I thought I should quickly get back in tune with you on your view of the ergonomics. And I'm sorry for stretching it into the technicalities. I'm really sorry about that. But I think that the ergonomics are quite important. For example, I'll tell you, one of the things that will put you under a lot of pressure in the workplace is posture. So if you maintain the wrong posture, you will eventually have a lot of pain. Your sitting position.
You're lifting weights.
And lifting weights in the workplace. And ergonomics has got a lot of things to do with that. So perhaps I'll tell you that these days, we've got many fanciful chairs in the workplaces that are not ergonomically efficient. So we've got to look at them and say the kind of seats we provide for our employees must be those that support the spine from the base of the neck down to the buttocks. You must look at that in the design of chairs or seats in the workplace. And then you talk about staring at the computer all day long. So the recommendation perhaps is give yourself about 5 minutes of screen break time for every 1 hour. So you stare at the screen for an hour, make out 5 minutes to stretch and to sort of relax your eyes. And of course, the recommendation is to change your posture every 2 hours in the workplace. So I think if we were to look at ergonomics from that point of view, it will help us to prevent burnout and reduce stress levels at the workplace, I think. Yes.
Poignant. Thank you. I will never, ever also not slip it into a mention. Our ladies with their high heels, their stilettos, the kind of tiles that we have also has a bearing, and that, like they say, too much of everything is bad, and we need to be very, very, very careful as part of the economics. Now, technological disruption, let's shift that a little bit now. By the fourth industrial revolution, say, and of course, since 2019, 2020, the COVID-19 have kind of redefined the way employees work and the infrastructure they use. That we have mentioned. But how can employees better manage their time, given that with such technology, there are in a series of virtual meetings after meetings? How can they begin to manage that aspect? Technology on one hand, plus meeting, virtual, not going on break, accepting the economics. How do you think employees can better manage this relative balance? Oh, yeah, Dr. Ogunwale. Okay, can you hear?
Can you
Well, okay, yes,
hear
yes,
me now?
yes, yes, yes. I can hear you now. Okay, go ahead. Did you get my question? Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, Dr. Ogunwale. Yeah.
I'm really sorry. I mean, I lost you for a bit there. I think it's the
Oh
network.
yes, I was looking at the disruption, of course, which has hit the world, fourth industrial revolution, and then
Oh, yes, I
COVID-19.
remember now.
Okay, all
Yes,
right.
yes. Okay,
Okay,
so
go ahead.
I think the first thing is what you've stressed so eloquently since the beginning of the program, and which is work-life balance. So as people work remotely, as a matter of fact, remote working has been perceived by 46% of respondents in the survey as being responsible for burnout, remote working, working from home. And so what you need to do is to redefine the boundaries in the home. So the virtual space is an actual space. And to the extent that it's an actual space, you've got to define boundaries. So first and foremost, you've got to plan your meetings as you would plan them in face-to-face configurations. If you've got 2 hours for a meeting, have 2 hours of the meeting online as well. If you have a break time when you are face-to-face, have a break time virtually as well. Now, if you were to do that, then the virtual nature of working and the remote nature of working would not be more stressful, at least, than the face-to-face configuration. But if you then look at the ease of the virtual configuration, and you think that everything is now boundless and no boundaries are in place, then you run the risk of actually exhausting yourself using a modality that should have made life easier for you. I tell you that in my experience, since we started the new normal after COVID-19 or within COVID-19, I've become to an extent more under stress, meeting up with schedules of online engagements than I ever was when we were having to do face-to-face configurations. To that extent, it seems we now must master this new normal. And that's key. It's got its protocols, and we must master it. Yeah.
That is that just in one sentence, Dr. Ogunwale, looking at realities of things with the pressure to earn more to sustain life, family, cost of living high. Is work-life balance really possible?
Yes, I understand what you're trying to get at, because the reality is that for you to make ends meet, an imbalance will tend to result, in which you will do more issue here is
Ooh.
I'm back. I went off for a bit.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. So what we need to do first and foremost is working and a smart way of living.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
A smart way of living and a smart way of working. We must look at smart in both directions. So, what are our objectives in life and what are our objectives in work? We must set specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound objectives on both sides. What tends to happen is, yes, go ahead, sir.
Oh, yes, because I was actually putting that, and we need to begin to address Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, because we see more of several young men and women in their prime slopping these days, and from what you have explained, how can they really specifically be mindful of high stress levels and maintain their health?
So, are you fully back? I think there's been a bit of rain and my network is quite unstable. I don't think it's yours, but there's network failure somewhere. So you were saying something about Generation X and Generation Y and Z.
The young, yes,
were you talking about their stress levels?
Yes, they are the young men and women just slumping behind the driving wheel, slumping at work. It happens a bit too much often. And I was just going to ask you that specifically, how can these youngsters be mindful to identifying high stress levels to really maintain their health, since health is wealth?
Well, I think when we talk about identifying the stress levels, before then slightly, maybe I could comment on the fact that unless we set our objectives correctly and we have a sense of priority, even in economics, we talk about a scale or preference. I think where the pressure is coming from is that we're in a generation that either does not respect the scale of preference or does not have one, or they've got only one scale, work. That's the only preference on their scale. So someone once told me, I was in the States, and the lady said it very jokingly. She said, oh, you know, work is their God in this country. That was what she said. He said in the US that work is the God of all men in this country. Now, I guess what she was saying is that priority one for the average worker in the States is work. Priority two is work. Priority three is work. I think that in generation XYZ, there must be priority. The earlier generations had their priorities set. So their priorities were, okay, work for daddy, family for mommy. And then both of them complemented each other. But generation X is work for daddy, work for mommy. If you're not careful, work for the children, because the children are competing too.
I was just going to hit that also. You know, Dr. Ogunwale, our female folks, perhaps more than most, really have to juggle family, have to juggle work to meet up with their husbands and their partners and other activities. Today's gender sensitive folks who are looking at us now, what advice can you give them to effectively juggle all this without dropping any risk or minor risk to their health and living?
Okay, so for them to succeed at this, we're going to look at what we call the Brenner ecological model, where you've got the person at the center, you've got family at the next ring, you've got community at another ring, and then society as the final ring. So the individual, the family, the community, and society. Now, I would place society as,
right,
let's say, board and management, perhaps, government,
okay.
those who are
Super.
regulators of life and practice. They must identify that currently in the formulation of deeply cultural societies like ours, the females have a lot to do. And in having so much to do, the cultural expectation is there. Society must rise up to support them. And one key way of supporting them will be things like children-friendly initiatives in the workplace. Now, once you've got that, the level of juggling will instantly reduce.
That's
tremendously.
Yes, I understand that.
So you are not thinking...
I understand that, Dr. Ogunwale. I like us to just go on a brief interlude. We will be talking a little bit more about that, crèche in workplace, now that they are even thinking, the government is thinking of giving, maternity,
father's paternity leave,
and all that. So we will go on break briefly, and I tell listeners and viewers, stay put. We shall soon be back. Thank you for still standing by us. And before we went on break, we were talking about work-life balance, making the workplace policy-wise in terms of motivation and smart work. And then we talked about friendly atmosphere for the females to be able to juggle work. Welcome back, Dr. Ogunwale. Now, let's start.
Thank you, Mr. Patunke.
Let's start this segment this way. In their honest desire, I dare say, when I interview quite a number of young men, middle-aged men, to provide for their families, most men work extra hard and unwittingly neglect to build relationships with their children. How, in your view, can we prevent the estrangement between fathers and their children without adversely affecting daddy's bank account balance?
Well, I mean, I guess, again, this is a question of work-life balance. So daddies are doing a lot with work, and then they are losing their balance in life. Again, there must be intentional objectives. There must be deliberateness in looking after the other side of things. So when men get so busy with looking for money, they must remember deliberately that, as the Yoruba people say, when families are unsettled, cities are in chaos. Cities are in ruins. That's what the Yoruba people say. And for those who are Yoruba, the way it's said is bi ode odun, bi igbe niluri. That is, when families are unsettled, cities are in ruins. Your work has little value when the family is not settled. So to that extent, it must be a deliberate priority on the part of the man to make the little time that he has for family to count. And then to deliberately create that time. So it's two things. When you've got little time, let it count. And when you are looking at your priorities, deliberately create the time. So as a father myself, there are times that I spend time deliberately to catch up with my children. I also do my best to be the one picking them up from school when I can. While we're in the car, we use that as a period of bonding. Now, you focus on people and not on their needs. So as men, we are task-oriented. So we want to focus on the needs and the tasks to be done. We forget to focus on the people themselves. And I see women always trying to say, there are people involved here. You've got to be aware. So when you focus on people, you will improve communication. And as you improve communication, even if you were to spend just a week out of 4 in a month with your family, your children and your wife will feel your presence so much. So during the day when you cannot be there physically, do you remember to call home and to ask how everyone is doing? Don't tell us that you work 24/7. Nobody works 24/7. All of us have time to catch a break. Now, when you catch that break, what are your priorities? Manage your time well. So we look at fathers and mothers who are workers, and applies to both genders. You've got to manage your time well. And there are 4 Ds of time management, which I found very provocative, very instructive. You look at the first D, which is to ditch. What is it that is not important, even if it appears urgent, that you can ditch for now? You ditch it. What is the thing that you can defer? So ditch it because you won't do it. Defer it because you can do it later. Delegate it, somebody else can do it. And then decide which one you do. Now, if we do that, we'll have more time for family, and then we can build relationships.
Work-life balance, it's the qua non, very delicate balance that we must really pay attention to. Now, Dr. Ogunwale, there is a popular saying that an apple a day saves you a date with your doctor. I don't know if that cliché still applies to the modern doctors now, because everybody wants to make sure they keep coming back, like we say in our language, turnover, come back, turnover, for the sake of your health. Now, what place do nutritional habits play in stress management?
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Fatonke. I think the first thing to note is that the father of medicine, who lived around 400 BC, Hippocrates, he said, let your food be thy medicine, and thy medicine thy food. End of quote. Meaning that from time immemorial, nutrition had been regarded as a critical element of managing man's health. And so what do we find? When you do eat well, and when we say eat well, there's a balance there. When you eat healthily and ensure calorie balance, you don't take more than you need, then you will find that you feel well and you can manage your stress level. Do you know that when people overeat, they actually feel stressed, both psychologically and physically? So the first thing is, don't overeat, don't overconsume calories. Try to measure what you eat against what you need. Then we talk about the WHO recommendations, which also involves watching your calorie balance. It talks about reducing salt intake. So when you do reduce salt intake, you will manage your blood pressure well. Now, when you don't manage your blood pressure well, you will be under a lot of stress. As a matter of fact, hypertension and stress are reciprocally related. So stress can lead to hypertension, and being hypertensive will stress you out. The same thing
Thank
works
you very
with
much.
diabetes. Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ogunwale. And let me just slip this in. And what beneficial exercise, physical exercise, can we add to our already busy daily routine for professionals?
All right. So when we say we are busy, we need to understand that the busyness is all in our minds. We can still structure our day and plan our time. So the WHO recommends that you need 30 minutes of exercise 5 days a week. All right. So 30 minutes, 5 days a week. So if you were to live one day, so if you do that, aerobics will help you to feel better and will help you to stay stronger. Research has shown that exercise reduces mortality by 40%. It reduces blood pressure, manages your blood sugar, and makes you feel better. So in my view, I think you have all to gain. Yeah.
With that delicate balance, yes. Unfortunately, time will always, be limiting factor to us. And I'm sure, Dr. Ogunwale, we're going to be asking you to come back some other time to educate us on this very important aspects of economic pressures. They will always be there, but we can balance it with some measure of exercises, good diets, and making sure we support legislation at all levels to ensure the workplace is given its primary interference in the affair of things. Thank you very much. I also like to thank our online listeners. Thanks very much for all your comments. Keep on receiving them. To also stress the fact that there is a portion of this that you can come and advertise your products and services. ICAN on Air will take you beyond your wildest of imaginations in terms of where your products and your value services can reach. If you enjoyed this, we're going to be asking that our next stop, the ICAN on Air train is moving, and we're going to stop again to take more of the knowledge we are going to be disseminating next Tuesday, November 16, 2021, and the time remains 6 p.m. West African time. And we are going to be looking at another important topic, this time, technology trends, impacts on global accountancy profession. We just celebrated the International Day for Accountancy, and our social diary, which is going to follow immediately, will say a little bit more of that. And our guest next Tuesday is going to be Tolu Akin Olugbemi, CPA, FCA, and who will be showing some in-depth lights into that subject. As I always say, I must be the change that we want to see. Health is wealth, and health comes first before any other. Bye for now. Akin Fatunke is my name, your host on ICAN on Air. See you on Tuesday. Bye.
may I request all inductees to raise your right hands to take the oath of allegiance by saying after me. When I say I, you put your name and then repeat other words after me. I do solemnly swear that I will bear true allegiance to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, that as Chartered Accountant, I will perform my duties and fulfill my obligations to the Institute and my current or future employers honestly, faithfully, and in accordance with the ICAN Act and the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That I will abide by the regulations and rules of professional conduct for chartered accountants and refrain from acts that will bring the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and the accountancy profession into disrepute. So help me God. By the powers conferred on me by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICAN Act number 15 of 1965, as well as the authority vested in me by the Governing Council of the Institute, I now admit you all into the membership of accountancy profession. Congratulations to you all once again. I formally welcome you to the membership of an exciting profession and wish you every success in your future career. Thank you. God bless you all.
Failure. We have some oases in the desert.